guys, today we're going to talk about simplifying fractions, and this goes with the learning goal. I can find fractions that are equal to a given fraction and simplify any fraction. So first of all, we're going to talk about what are equivalent fractions. And equivalent has the root word in it EQU, which should help you understand that has something related to equal. So equivalent fractions are basically fractions that are equal to each other, or fractions that name the same amount. So we're looking for fractions that basically name the same amount but look a little bit different. So the first thing we're going to do here is we are going to write three fractions that are equivalent to 7/8. And it turns out that the way you do that is by either multiplying or dividing both the numerator and the denominator by the same number. Now 7 and 8 can't both be divided by the same number other than 1, which would give us an equivalent fraction, but it would be the exact same fraction. So I'm going to multiply 7 and 8 by some different things and find some fractions that are equivalent to 7/8. So for example, if I take 7/8 and I multiply the numerator and the denominator, I could choose anything. If I'm just looking for two equivalent fractions, in this case, I'm going to multiply them both by 2. And notice that what I'm really multiplying by is 2 over 2, which is the same thing as 1. And when you multiply a number by 1, you get just that number again. So like 2 times 1 is 2, or 3 times 1 is 3. So in this case, I'm really just taking 7/8. I'm multiplying it by 1. It changes what the fraction looks like, but it doesn't change the fraction itself. It doesn't change what it's equal to. So it's like you're giving your fraction plastic surgery. It changes what it looks like on the outside, but the person inside, the fraction inside, doesn't change. So let's do that. Let's give our fraction some plastic surgery. 7 times 2 is 14, and 8 times 2 is 16. So 14/16 is equivalent, or names the same amount as 7/8. Same amount, just looks a little bit different. Now let's write another one. So I'll take 7/8 again, and again I am just going to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So I could pick any number I want. Let's say I decide I'm going to multiply them both by 5. That's an easy number to multiply usually. So 7 times 5 is 35, and 8 times 5 is 40, which tells me that 35/40 is a fraction that's equivalent to 7/8. And now I need to do one more of these. So I'm going to take 7 and 8, and I'm going to multiply them again by the same number, and let's choose 100 this time. So 7 times 100 is 700, and 8 times 100 is 800, and so again 700/800 is now a fraction that is equivalent to 7/8. Looks different, means the same amount. Now sometimes, like I said before, you might want to divide your numerator and your denominator by the same thing to get an equivalent fraction instead of multiplying by the same thing. So let's take 24/30 and let's divide both of these numbers, the numerator and the denominator, by the same thing. And I just need to choose any number that's a common factor of 24 and 30. It doesn't have to be the greatest common factor, but any number that's a common factor, I can divide both of them by. I do want to get a whole number for my answer. So I could choose, in this case, 2, because 24 and 30 are both divisible by 2. They're both even numbers, and so that means they are for sure both divisible by 2. And notice again, I am dividing by 2 over 2, so I'm really just dividing by 1. And when you divide by 1, you get the same number back out. And so my fraction is going to look different when I'm done with this, but it's going to mean the same amount. So 24 divided by 2 is 12, and 30 divided by 2 is 15. So now I have 12/15, and I know that that is an equivalent fraction to 24/30, and I can go ahead and do this a couple more times and find other equivalent fractions. So 24 and 30 can both be divided by 3. 24 divided by 3 is 8, and 30 divided by 3 is 10. And so 8/10 is a fraction that is equivalent to 24/30. And my last one here, 24/30, I could divide both of these by, I know that these are both divisible by 2 and 3, so that tells me that they are also both divisible by 6. So let's go ahead and divide by 6 over 6. Again, we're just dividing by 1. So 24 divided by 6 is 4, and 30 divided by 6 is 5. So 4/5 is also equivalent to 24/30. Now this slide looks a little bit different on your note guide, and I apologize for that. I had a little mistake. What I actually want you to do is simplify 16/48. And when we say simplify or put in simplest form or lowest terms, what we're basically saying is we would like you to take the fraction and make it so that the numerator and the denominator have no common factor other than 1. And then that fraction is in lowest terms. And there's a couple ways I can do that. I can, first of all, either list all the factors and find the greatest common factor of the numerator and the denominator, and then I will be able to simplify my fraction in one step. Or I can just divide the numerator and the denominator by common factors, even if they're not the greatest common factor, and it just takes a couple more steps to simplify. So let's first do the greatest common factor method, and then we'll try the other method. So I'm going to list all the factors of 16. Factors of 16 are 1 and 16. And also I know that 16 is divisible by 2, and that 2 times 8 equals 16. 1 plus 6 equals 7, so 16 is not divisible by 3. However, I know it is divisible by 4, and that 4 times 4 equals 16, so therefore I'm done finding factors of 16. So I'm going to start listing the factors of 48, and I know that 48 is divisible by 1 and 48. 48 is also divisible by 2, and 2 goes into 48 24 times. I don't know if 48 is divisible by 3, so I'm going to add the two digits together. 4 plus 8 is 12, and 12 is divisible by 3, so that means that 48 is divisible by 3. And I could do that on a calculator, and I would find that 3 went into 48 16 times. 48 is divisible by 4 12 times. 5 does not go into 48 because it doesn't end in a 5 or a 0, but 6 goes into 48 8 times. And 7 does not divide into 48, so now I know I've listed all the factors of 48, and I can see that the greatest common factor of 48 and 16 is actually 16. So if I wanted to write this in lowest terms, I could divide both my numerator and my denominator by their greatest common factor, which is 16, and that would give me 1/3. And so 1/3 is equivalent to 16/48, and it's also in lowest terms because there's no number I can divide 1 and 3 by evenly other than 1. And so I know that's in lowest terms. Now another way of reducing 16/48 to simplest form or lowest terms is to just start dividing it by numbers that I know will divide evenly into 16 and 48 but aren't necessarily the greatest common factor. So for example, I could start out dividing 16 and 48 each by 2. I know that they are both divisible by 2, and I would get 8 over 24. And I know that 8 and 24 are both divisible by 8. So I could divide both of these by 8. Again, it doesn't matter what numbers I use as long as they're common factors of 8 and 24. 8 divided by 8 is 1. 24 divided by 8 is 3. So again, I end up with a fraction in lowest terms, 1/3, and I've done that in 2 steps instead of just in 1 step like I would if I had divided by the greatest common factor. But it's still in lowest terms, so either method will work, whichever you prefer. Here are your free response and multiple choice questions, so please pause the video now and answer these 2 questions.